Welcome to Dear SQL DBA. Do database administrators need college degrees? My name is Kendra Little from SQLworkbooks.com. And before I go ahead and get started, one little word from our sponsor. That is me, actually, Kendra Little at SQL Workbooks. I just this week have launched some new live seminars. There are multiple. Two of them are Learn Indexing by Solving Problems. That's an 8-hour course that will take place live and online across 2 different days. And I have dates scheduled in both June and September for that one. And I'm also doing Conquering Blocking and Isolation Levels, which is another 8-hour course that takes place online over 2 days. And right now I have these on sale for more than 50% off. They're $249 USD each right now. I also have a package where you can buy all the online seminars at a deep discount. It's called the SQL Symposium. If you hit up SQLworkbooks.com/live, you can get details on all of the seminars, and prices will be going up soon. You can see exactly how long you have left on the website. I'm so excited about doing those courses. I've had a lot of requests for them, so excited to go ahead and get them launched. All right, so this week's question for the podcast came from a user who said, I'm currently finishing my Oracle DBA certification path, and I love it. And I'm very excited to start my career as a DBA. There's a senior DBA at my current place of employment who is going to mentor me as well. Now, I have 14 months of hands-on experience with SQL Server and Oracle, but here's the thing. I don't have a college degree. I have about 60 hours of college credits. Do you think my education will hinder my chances of getting a job as a DBA, even with my certifications and hands-on experience? Well, this is an interesting question, and I don't know about you, but I actually, I do have a college degree. I have a bachelor's degree, and I actually have a master's degree. But my bachelor's degree is like a super fruity humanities degree, and my master's degree is in philosophy, right? But I got those a long time ago, so I was like, okay, 60 hours. How much of a college degree is that? Like, I didn't even remember. So I looked it up. Typically, a bachelor's degree is 120 credit hours. That does usually take 4 years. Full time, of course, we all know folks who have done it in longer, right? And I know folks who've done it quicker as well. But of course, if our questioner has 60 hours and it generally takes about 120 hours, then yeah, that would be a lot of work, especially if you weren't going full time and we're trying to finish it up at night. That would not be a trivial thing to do. So how much of a hindrance is that going to be? Now, anecdotally, I do know quite a few DBAs who are gainfully employed and who don't have college degrees. So anecdotally, I know it can happen out there, but the question is, how much will this hinder me? So I decided to take a look and sample some job listings out there and just look at what are the listings saying? And I looked at listings in a couple of different areas. I looked first at some job listings near me. I live in Oregon in the Pacific Northwest, and I was curious, around me, what are people saying about DBA job positions that they want? Because, of course, a job listing is a lot like an ad on a dating site. You may not end up with your ideal match, right? But in terms of what listings are saying, there's a job near me at a health plan. And actually, I found this job online, but I was at a SQL Server group in my area recently, and I met someone there who works at this place and talks a little bit about the job as well. For this DBA job, they would like to have a bachelor's degree in computer science, information systems, or similar, or an equivalent combination of education and experience. That position is focused on SQL Server. There's also a software company downtown, and I know a lot of bright folks who've worked there, and this software company, they don't list any degree requirements at all. They want 5 years of experience as a DBA, and then if you've used lots of different technologies, they're really interested in you too. They want a DBA, but they also want someone who's interested in different NoSQL technologies and learning lots of different ways to store data. Some more jobs around me in the Northwest. There's a database developer at an IT and analytics firm, and they again said, we want a bachelor's in engineering or computer science. And folks, when they're listing degrees, they are listing degree areas, right? They aren't just saying a bachelor's. They're really generally saying computer science or related area or equivalent experience. There's a gift card startup around here too that's looking for a DBA/system engineer, right? They want you to also be in their systems engineering team. There's also some app support. And again, bachelor's degree in computer science or related field or equivalent experience. A lot of the companies in the Pacific Northwest just say in the job listing or equivalent, and they seem to be really open to people who have the right experience. If you don't have a degree, it's no big deal. There's a tech company in Bend, Oregon who, and if you've never been to Bend, Oregon, it is a lovely place. Like it is, I go there to ride bikes sometimes. It's a wonderful place to visit. They want somebody with a 4-year degree in computer science or equivalent. And their job description actually mentions that they give all their employees free turkeys every year on Thanksgiving. You can also have pie if you don't want the turkey. They celebrate Halloween, and they mention this in the job description. When you're looking at job descriptions, even when you're not looking for yourself, it's a little depressing. But then occasionally you come across these little gems where you're like, oh, you actually seem like a fun company, right? So, and they're saying, or equivalent experience. There is also a cloud software company in Oregon. They even, were hiring people remote. I think they were headquartered in Texas, but they had, the ad listed in Oregon so that it would come up for candidates here since it is a remote job. And they wanted a lot of cloud experience as well as database experience. But again, no degree listed. There were some desirable like AWS certifications and the like in there, of course. But it generally may not take you 4 years of going to school full time to get an AWS certification, right? So maybe a little bit easier there. All right. So in my area, in the Pacific Northwest in the United States, it looks like there's a lot of or equivalent. Okay. So I said, all right, what I sense, my guess is just from having consulted with people around the country and around the world, that there are going to be different job climates in different locations where some are more restrictive. So I said, I'm going to look at some listings in Washington, D.C. because it seems like a pretty conservative area, right? I lived there for a few years when I was in high school, and a lot of people care a lot about clearance and rules. So if they care about clearance, do they also care about degrees? And I also looked more at senior listings. I put the senior keyword in there. So there's a government agency position, and they're hiring a senior DBA. Now, they don't require a degree, but for their SQL Server DBA, they want 10 years of experience managing and modifying SQL and Access databases. And they also want 10 years of working with Visual Basic macros. So you don't have to have a degree for that, but you need to enjoy working with Microsoft Access and Visual Basic macros, which isn't your usual DBA thing. Some job listings are like that. There's a government contractor that did say bachelor's degree. They didn't say anything about it, right? They didn't say or equivalent on there, but they didn't put any special wording on it. Now they do require top secret or SSBI clearance. I didn't look up all the acronyms on these jobs, but they do require the candidate to have some clearance. And my guess about this job is that if you have the clearance, but you don't have the degree, I'm guessing is going to be really negotiable. And I know this based on my own experiences out there because, by the way, I mentioned I have a really fruity degree in humanities. All of these job listings are saying, we want somebody with a degree in engineering or computer science. And I still managed to get jobs over the years, right? So I kind of know that when they have this as a listing, they don't always mean it. And when they do really mean it, they often say that in the listing. So for example, in the DC area, there was a recruiter at a job listing for a senior DBA. The listing was for a fairly traditional on-call role out there. And they wrote bachelor's degree, highly desired, and they put highly desired in all caps because a lot of the candidates out there know that for this type of job, for database administrator jobs, the degree requirement is often very squishy if it's there at all. And they also, not only did they write highly desired in all caps, they listed it 5th among the, the whole list of requirements for the jobs. They put it pretty high up there. So this is a case where I actually think whoever's doing this hiring actually does really care. This is the first listing that we've gotten to, right? It's like, oh yeah, they probably really care about that. There was a senior app and database administrator at a university. This position said a bachelor's and or master's degree in computer science or related IT field. That was in their requirements. And this one actually kind of made me laugh. And it didn't make me laugh because of the particular university or anything like that. It made me laugh because recently I was chatting with a local university in my area about the potential of me working as an adjunct and possibly, and this is really loose, right? This is not like me getting an actual offer or anything like that, but potentially teaching a course in, introduction to databases. And the reason that they're interested in all is because I have a lot of work experience with databases and I have experience teaching, but I have like hands-on real world experience and I know how people actually work as DBAs and database developers. Not that I have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree in computer science or a related field, right? So the fact that there's a university who's hiring a senior app and database admin and they're like, oh, we'd really like you to have a master's degree in computer science. I'm like, well, you may not actually need that to teach it. Do you really need it to do the job? But some folks think so. Now, how hard is this requirement? This one could be squishy too. It could be a nice to have for them. It's hard to know. Other listings in the DC area, there was a senior DBA for a government contractor that had BS in computer science or a closely related field. Now, they didn't put it in the main job requirements. They put it in additional job requirements. And whenever I see that, far down, whatever's in additional, I kind of think of as a nice to have. They really haven't put it in the main requirements. There's a senior SQL DBA for a different government contractor that this is another one that they wanted an active secret clearance. They even listed a specific SQL Server certification they wanted someone to have, but they didn't list a degree requirement. So not all government contractors even are listing this as a requirement. And if they do, very few of them are really emphasizing it. All right, so I finally looked at one more area. I said, how about Southern California? And I just made the area really big. I said, look at Southern California. And here we found some of my favorite style of job listings. There's a AAA of Southern California is hiring a senior DBA. And this happens sometimes. They've got folks who've got an HR department who maybe hasn't updated their job listings in a while. So they actually want somebody to have quite a few years of experience with SQL Server. They want a bachelor's degree in computer science or equivalent experience, right? So we've got the equivalent experience here, but then they also want proven experience with Query Analyzer and Enterprise Manager. So, but they do want you to have worked with recent versions of SQL Server. So, you're kind of looking at this and you're like, I think someone wrote that job listing about 18 years ago, and then it's just been recycled over and over and over again. Doesn't necessarily mean a bad job. It's a bad job, but it kind of makes me laugh every time I do it. I kind of want to be like, maybe we should update the wording here. There's a health plan in Southern California that does want a bachelor's degree. Now, they even say in business administration, computer science or related field, right? Which I actually thought it was interesting that they broadened that. Well, and they want a minimum of 8 years of experience in IT consulting, business analysis, or a related field. And this is another one of those jobs where I'm like, okay, I suspect that you care more about the 8 years of experience. There is an Oracle application DBAs for a freight tools company that, again, open to equivalent experience. They do want 10 plus years of overall experience with a minimum of 5 years working with Oracle apps. There's a senior DBA for an enterprise financial company. And in that case, they said, quote, BS in information systems or relatable field is a required. It is a required. This was a recruiter listing, and recruiter listings, external recruiter listings, are kind of famous for being grammatically questionable. So I'm not sure that the hiring manager would like that is a required was used in their listing. But apparently this is another example of actually, in this case, they do really mean it enough that they're actually saying in there, no, this isn't squishy in this case. Now, what I saw in these listings matches up what I've seen as being part of the hiring process, being on the hiring end. It is really tricky to hire a great database administrator. Managers do like college degrees. The people doing the hiring, they are hanging on to what I see as a kind of old-fashioned way to tell if someone is gonna be a good candidate. I am a person who actually has been in academia. I spent a bunch of time getting my bachelor's degree and then getting a master's degree. I certainly personally see the value in going to college, but I don't think it's the only way to show whether or not you can be a great member of a team and whether you can be effective in a technical environment, whether you can communicate well. I also think that if managers really are valuing experience, and when it comes to database administration, managers really do value experience. And in part, this is because there is no great degree in becoming a DBA, right? Computer science is not the same thing as database administration. Database administration, maybe there's a couple of classes specifically on that topic. And with database administrators, there's a lot of influence on problem solving with very specific technologies and working with part of a team. And you don't necessarily get trained on that as part of a computer science degree. So the fact that managers like both these things, they like college degrees and they really like experience, means that, okay, they go through and they start interviewing different candidates. Well, different candidates aren't necessarily going to be a great fit for their team, both due to technical skills as well as communication and just how the teams work together. So even when you have qualified candidates, it's hard to find the right person. Usually there's something that's got to give. And typically managers will take experience and then someone who fits technically with the team and whose communication skills are good. Typically, they'll go ahead and take that person, even if they don't have a college degree. So this was a very non-scientific survey I did of the listings, but the listings that I saw said there are a lot of places that just even say in the listing, we are open to equivalent experience, right? It would be great if you had a college degree, but we will look at equivalent experience, which includes all sorts of life experience and work experience. When people really seem to want a college degree, they actually say so. And I saw all of 2 of those in my look through here today. And I suspect that even those, if you had a college degree and it wasn't in computer science, they would take that as well, right? I think what they're saying is we would love it if you had a degree in computer science or engineering, but we really need you to have a degree because the management at this company won't budge on that one. There are some cases where I have found, and it has been a few, where management just has this idea that everyone has to have a 4-year degree and they won't budge on it. In many jobs, security clearances or certification, sometimes they care more about that than they care about a degree. So for our questioner, the question was, I'm on this great career track and I'm feeling really good about it and I'm loving it and I'm a little worried. Is my not having a degree going to rule out some jobs? Yeah, lacking a degree is going to rule out some jobs. But in my experience and with what I see in the market, it's going to be a pretty small amount of jobs, and it's more prevalent in some locations than in other locations. Like here in the Pacific Northwest, I looked around at the job listings and or equivalent experience was everywhere. So I wouldn't really worry about it because our questioner is in the position where they've got a mentor, they're building that hands-on experience, and they're making connections with other people. Those connections you make with other people, with people who you work with actively, with people at a local user group that you attend, with people that you meet at conferences. Maybe it's a free SQL Saturday, or maybe it's a database conference. Those connections are often going to land you a job. And in most of those cases, even if they had been really, really wanting someone with a college degree, if they've interacted with you and they know cool things that you've done, and they've seen how excited you are about data, and they have a real excitement for you, even in those cases where they actually really want a degree, for someone they know, often it's not going to be a big deal to leap past that on the requirements list. I do think there's a deeper question here, right? I really, looking at all these listings, I thought it was interesting that there's so much about computer science degrees on these database administrator job listings. And just the question of, okay, I think there is a long-term bias in terms of thinking that a college degree is kind of a proof that it makes someone smart, right? And as someone with a master's degree, I can tell you that it's not proof that I'm smart at all. But my master's degree isn't in computer science. So if I had a computer science degree, would I be a better DBA? Well, I've had some room to think about this recently because my partner in life has gone back to school to study computer science. Jeremiah Peshka, he has a degree in English. He had a bachelor's degree in English that he's gotten long ago in a place far away. And after he got that bachelor's degree in English, he worked as a developer, and he got into database administration. He got into consulting and teaching and worked a lot with data. And now he's gone back to school and is working towards getting a PhD in computer science. But with just a bachelor's degree in English, you don't just walk up and say, I would like PhD in computer science, please. You need to do the equivalent of, like if you're familiar with medical school, you know that some folks can do a post-bac, what's called a post-bac, and kind of, if they don't have the pre-med courses, they can go back and just study up on those courses and then go towards med school if they didn't, already take care of all of those in the work that they've done. Well, there's something similar you can do with computer science where you don't have to get a whole second bachelor's degree. You can take required undergraduate computer science courses and then move into, after you pass those levels, move into master's and doctorate levels. Well, so I've gotten to watch, and now I haven't certainly done all of the work. I haven't done any of the work, but I've gotten to watch as he's gone along this journey of doing, courses on algorithms, courses on logic, courses on intro to databases, courses on programming and all this stuff. And you certainly learn a lot in a computer science program. Does it make you a better database administrator? Well, yes, but I also think that you could get the same things that you're getting about critical thinking and understanding some of the internals of databases. I think that you can get that from certain work experience. We all know that not all job experiences are exciting and not all job experiences teach us a lot. Some jobs definitely involve more problem solving, more creativity, more thinking, and give us more opportunities to learn than others, right? So I think that from what I've observed, yeah, you can learn a lot from getting that college degree, but the relevant experience that you can get in life, and that sometimes you can get just by challenging yourself and outside of your main job, learning things, taking on challenges, getting yourself educated, figuring out how you can talk your manager into letting you go to that conference, for example, that you can build those skills out of there as well. And the number of courses that are in a computer science program that are specifically related to database administration, those also are not a lot. Right? So I personally, I would be interested to hear an argument that says, yes, DBAs should have computer science degrees. And I would be interested to see the argument of why, because at this point in time, I personally just don't see the logic to it when it comes to the field of database administration. So I, as someone who knows a lot of DBAs who don't have college degrees, as someone who looks at these job listings and sees the or-related experience and sees that there's just a few job listings that are saying, no, really, we really do want a degree, I still wouldn't worry too much about getting, like, if you're a long ways from a college degree, I wouldn't freak out about it if you want to be a DBA. It's connecting with other DBAs, building your skills and experience, and landing those jobs to build up your experience with especially more and more emerging recent technologies in SQL Server, those are the things that are going to continue to serve you in advancing your career and landing jobs as a DBA. Thanks so much for joining me. I want to check out some of the comments here. Tom says, or equivalent allows a lot of wiggle room. If this person is at the halfway mark, they would probably be better served to finish their studies. So that's a vote that says, okay, if you're at the halfway mark, they would probably be better served to finish their studies. See, I think halfway is just not very far when it comes to a 4-year degree. I mean, I know some folks, it means a lot to them to finish that degree. Like if you've got a personal investment and you're going to love having that degree, then going to school at night can be worth it. And I know some folks who've done that and it just, it's really rewarding for them. And I love that. But if it's not that situation, I think you can you can get a lot of cool jobs without it. But I love hearing your take on it too. Ryan says, if they want enterprise and manager and query analyzer, they could be saying that they're still using SQL 2000. That was the kind of interesting thing about the listing is I didn't see that in there. I was reading fast, Ryan. I was reading fast. They did mention a lot of more recent versions, but I would certainly ask them. Like I would say any mention of enterprise manager or query analyzer in a listing is a big old red flag that makes you want to pull back. If you do talk to these folks, kind of pull back things a little bit and be like, what? So what are the older versions of SQL Server that you're running? Like, really, I need to know. Like, I need to know now. We need to talk about whether this relationship is going to go further or not. Because it's tricky to manage these old unsupported instances, especially when they go wrong, especially if they're critical to the business. But yeah, it is one of those fun things. Great question. How can I get fast experience if my current, and I think I've got a word missing in here. I think it's basically if my current job doesn't provide a lot now. This is an interesting question. And I cover this a lot in my junior DBA talks of how do I get a job if I don't have experience? So my main takeaways for this, I'm going to do really high level summary are you always want to be honest. You can build some experience in test environments, right? But you want to always be honest what you've learned by testing. And you want to make connections with people. So things like going to a local user group, talking to people there, say, hey, I'm just starting out and I'm building up my experience. How did you get into the DBA jobs here? Do you have any advice for someone just starting out? Do you know anyone who's got junior DBA jobs? Making those connections with people and explaining where you are and asking for their help in your area is going to be your best hope for finding those opportunities because it is really hard landing those first DBA jobs. I mean, it was really, really hard for me. I had many, many jobs where I kept just taking jobs where I worked with data and trying to build experience in a production environment, managing data flows, kind of edging more and more towards the more technical things, and then eventually landing it there. Now, I didn't know about user groups when I was first starting out and doing that, and I really wish I'd had that to add in. Especially because they're free and they generally meet in the evenings. Now there's also virtual groups as well. A little bit harder to make the in-person connection with those, but you can sometimes do that as well. Comment from Scott. Georgia Tech is offering a master's degree in computer science for about $7,000 total. I'm still working on my BS, but it's a thought for anyone wanting to go on. This is actually, and it's all online, Scott says. I think this is really hugely interested for folks who really are interested in getting master's degree in computer sciences. And especially when you have a love for the topic and maybe you want it in part to get a job, but you want to work more on building your knowledge. Obviously, I'm into that, right? You don't get a master's degree in philosophy for practical reasons. But more and more computer science departments, really good ones, are starting to build online programs where you don't have to fly across the country or take 2 weeks off or go at night. You can, for reasonable amounts of money, attend university and build degrees online. And I really think I'm obviously bias towards online education. I don't think there's any secret about that, but I love the fact that more and more of this is becoming available. There's also, if you don't want to get a degree, but you want to audit courses, there's a lot of really great big name computer science programs that are doing more and more free material online. They don't necessarily land you towards a degree, but they could teach you a lot, and you could have a lot of fun and learn a lot about yourself in the process too. I think that's a great comment. I'm like, yes, this is why I love doing this online. There's things I didn't think about including that are really important and will be valuable for folks. All right, so we have just run out of time, and I need to wrap this up, get this recorded, and ship this podcast episode. Thank you so much for joining me for Dear SQL DBA. We will be back on May 17th. I'll be talking about dealing with a lack of control as a DBA. It is really, really interesting as a database administrator how we often get to be responsible for things, but we don't get to control everything. And there's interesting things to think about and tips that I've learned over time about balancing that and making it work that I'd like to share. And if you have thoughts on that too, I would love for you to join in. That's going to be recorded on Thursday, May 17th at 1 p.m. Pacific. Hope to see you then. Thanks, folks. Bye.